from the time you're born until the time you die, every day as the earth spins once on its every 24 hours on its axis, part of that time you're in sunlight and part of that time you're in the darkness. We have major phases of alertness and calmness that we call sleep that are regulated by light received by the eye. So there's a direct relationship, a fundamental relationship between the visual system and our level of alertness and our level of calmness. It's very simple. Because we have thick skulls and because every cell in our body needs light information, but light can't get to the cells directly, we view light at particular times of day. It comes into our eye, and a particular category of cells in the eye, doesn't matter what they're called, but if you want to know, for the aficionados, they are the melanopsin intrinsically photosensitive ganglion cells, perceive light at particular times of day and translate that into a signal that's hormonal and neural that causes us to be alert at particular phases of the 24-hour cycle and to be calm and asleep at other phases. And a diagram of how this works in a very simple form is from a review by Sato and co-workers, which shows that as we wake, the light received by our eyes translates into a signal that's endocrine, hormonal, and cortisol is the signal. We hear about cortisol being bad, but it's actually, you want cortisol to peak early in the day. And then across the day, you might get little blips of cortisol. This might be that fraudulent credit card charge. This might be a news headline that you don't particularly like. This might be, you realize you're late to something, and this might be sort of thinking about all these things that happened before or what's going to happen tomorrow. But nonetheless, cortisol, despite these little spikes, is designed to be high in the morning and low at night. And melatonin, which makes us sleepy, it's another hormone, is designed to be higher at night and come up about 12 to 16 hours after this light is perceived by the eyes. Now, you're not conscious of this, but this is a way in which your visual system provides the most fundamental level of instruction about when you should be alert or when you should be asleep. And that translates to some specific science-backed practices that we should all be doing. And I'm guessing that very few of you are doing all of them and probably are violating a few of them in ways that actually make this simple diagram of cortisol early, then low in the afternoon, and melatonin low early and then on and high late during the day, which is optimal for wakefulness during the day, plenty of energy, but not too much, and sleepiness at night and falling asleep easily, is governed by light of a particular quality and timing. So here's an image of Stanford campus. That's Hoover Tower. Of course, you all recognize that. And you'll notice that the contrast between blue and yellow light at sunrise and sunset, what we call what the nerdy phrase for that is low solar angle, when the sun is low in the sky, has a particular pattern of contrast between yellows and blues that recent data from the Knights Lab at University of Washington tell us as the yellows are getting brighter and the blues are getting dimmer, signals to the brain a wake-up signal. And there's a lot that we could talk about to go into this, but what this translates to is a simple practice that is vital for controlling the autonomic nervous system for health, both mental and physical health. So the behavioral practice, and this is extracted from dozens now of scientific papers in humans and at laboratory animals, is to view sunlight soon after waking, sort of peri-sunrise. You don't actually need to see the sun rise, but you're not hopefully waiting until the sun is overhead, because when the sun is overhead, you're not going to get the yellow-blue contrast that triggers the particular neurons in the eye that cause this wake-up signal and this cortisol increase early in the day. And that wake-up signal times the onset of the melatonin signal, so it also tells you when you're going to get sleepy late at night or later at night. So you want to see the sun for about 1 to 10 minutes, not through a window, but outside. You don't have to stare at the sun. Please don't stare directly at the sun. If ever it's painful to look at a light of any kind, it's too bright. Please don't damage your retina. But light to your peripheral vision or incoming through the eyes is the primary signal by which you wake up your nervous system properly, hormonally, neurally, and set forward a cascade of health promoting timing of neurotransmitters and neuromodulators and hormones. It also occurs on overcast days. It doesn't have to be one of these beautiful sunrises behind Hoover Tower. The more overcast it is, however, the more exposure you need to that light. And in some cases, like Scandinavia in the depths of winter, some people need to resort to artificial lights that do this. Now, I'm not aware of any artificial lights that trigger the yellow-blue contrast because those are recent data. Many of them rely simply on blue light, and we're going to talk more about blue light. The other thing that's vitally important to not causing your whole nervous system to be stressed is to not have it be awake at the wrong times. The best way to have your nervous system alert at the wrong times is to trigger the activation of the sympathetic nervous system between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. And the best way to do that is to view bright light. So in other words, avoid bright lights, especially bright overhead lights from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. A lot of people are obsessed with blue light as this culprit, but Jamie Zeitzer from the Sleep Lab and I talk about this a lot. Simar Hattar at the National Institute of Mental Health runs the chronobiology unit, talk about this a lot. The location of the lights is just as important. You want them low in your visual field because overhead lights are what trigger the wake-up signal to the brain. And blue light during the day is actually good for your circadian system because it's going to wake up your circadian system. It's blue light at night that's a problem. And so there's a lot of confusion. People are thinking that blue light is just across the board bad, and the data just don't support that. You want blue-yellow contrast and blue light early in the day, and you want to avoid it later in the day in the evening. Now, there is a way around this, although it's only partial, which is viewing low solar angle light in the evening as the sun is setting has been shown in laboratory studies to partially offset the negative effects of nighttime light. Light inhibits melatonin, which prevents sleepiness or has us wake up a few hours into sleep if we view bright light late. Viewing the setting sun provides an additional time cue that allows you to better transition into sleep, even if you're looking at screens in the evening. You do not need to live in a cave from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. Never compromise safety. If you have to work during those hours, we could talk about shift work in a separate discussion. But obviously, if you have to get up and use the restroom or you need to do something for safety reasons, then you want to get light, regardless of whether or not you're getting bright light in your eyes. It's always safety first, of course. But these 3 points are vital to setting the overall level of stress and calm in your system across the 24-hour day. So if you're viewing bright lights or you're using overhead bright lights late in the day or you're on a screen or tablet, it should be very dim in the evening. And ideally, you're keeping it dark. Provided it's safe, candlelight is very low light levels. The kind of stinger, in this is that early in the day, you need a lot of light to wake up your system. And late in the day, it takes very little light to inhibit melatonin. And so you need to keep it extra dark or dim in the evening and nighttime and extra bright during the day. People with macular degeneration should avoid bright lights in general and should be a little more cautious about bright light exposure. Happy to have another discussion about that. Jamie Zeitzer, I thought I'd share a little bit of data. His lab has shown a direct relationship. This was also done with Chuck Zeitzer's lab, but a direct relationship between the amount of light and the drowsiness. So the brighter the light, at least up into a point, 10,000 lux, the more alert you're going to be during the day. And the dimmer the light, the less alert you're going to be during the day. So some people wake up alert and then find themselves drowsy throughout the day. You might not be getting enough light according to these data. Jamie's lab has also done some really interesting work recently showing that brief flashes of bright light before teenagers wake up. So literally going in their room and flashing some bright light in their eyes, even though their eyes are closed, it goes through the eyelids, has 2 effects. 1, it causes them to go to bed earlier the following night. And 2, it causes them to get 45 minutes more of deep quality sleep, which we know is vital for learning. So this is a little bit diabolical, but for parents, you can actually go in and turn on the lights before your kids get up, as long as they're not hiding under the covers the entire time. If they pull the covers over the head, it only takes a minute or so. Then you can turn the lights off and then allow them to wake up. If you do that, you will secretly shift them, whether or not they're aware of it or not is up to you, toward going to bed earlier, waking up earlier, and yet getting more deep sleep that's vital to immune function, learning, and all the other things we described earlier. If they don't like that, you can blame Jamie and colleagues. But I think it's given how sleep deprived everyone is and given how kids and all of us really are under the covers looking at phones and tablets, this could be a useful practice. The lights do not have to be strobe bright, but they should be relatively bright. And now you know that overhead lights would be more efficient than, say, low dim lights like a desk lamp. So even for a few minutes and then turned off afterwards. The plot here shows that it really is an effect of light and not something like cognitive behavioral therapy. The change in total sleep time, TST, is what shifted here. So you're seeing a big significant increase in